So, it's the Doge cuts. It's now this shutdown. I almost wonder, why would anybody want to be a federal worker when supposedly the reason to be one was job security?
And that's what Trump and Republicans want.
Anna Navarro was a guest on Abby Phillip's show on CNN to talk about the government shutdown. As is always the case on Abby Phillip's show, there were also a couple of MAGA commentators on there. We're going to see this debate between Anna Navarro, Abby Phillip, and these MAGA pundits on CNN. I have thoughts to share on this as well. Let's check it out together.
Shutdown standoff. Tonight, there is no end in sight to the government shutdown, and there is no Donald Trump in sight either. Instead, the White House put out Vice President J.D. Vance in front of the press on day one, as fingers point in every direction over who's to blame for this. Now, for the Democrats, they have very little leverage here. Even a Washington Post editorial is warning that they played into Trump's hands. It argues that past shutdowns failed to achieve anything for the Freedom Caucus, and there's no reason to think that the same thing won't happen to their left-wing counterparts now. And it appears that the White House and Republicans are embracing this moment.
We believe that layoffs are imminent. They are, unfortunately, a consequence of this government shutdown.
I think that is fantastic. And what it's going to do is it's going to cause Democrats in Congress to scream and weep.
It's those kinds of consequences that forced independent Senator Angus King, who caucuses with the Democrats, to vote to avoid a shutdown.
The irony, the paradox is, by shutting the government, we're actually giving Donald Trump more power. And that was why I voted yes. I did not want to hand Donald Trump and Russell Vought and Stephen Miller additional power to decimate the federal government, to decimate the programs that are so important to so many people.
Shutdowns are a messy thing, and it's hard to say who's really going to get the blame for all of this, but there's clearly some uneasiness in the ranks of Democrats and those who caucus with them. Let me just read for you, Anna, what Democratic Representative Jared Golden said. He said, "This government shutdown is the result of hardball politics driven by the demands of far-left groups that they are making for Democratic Party leaders to show their opposition to Trump. The shutdown is hurting Americans and our economy, and the irony is it has only handed more power to the president. But normal policy disagreements are no reason to subject our constituents to continued harm of the shutdown." I mean, does he have a point?
Look, I think there's something wrong with you, regardless of party, if you don't feel unease and really disturbed by the idea that shutdowns have almost become modus operandi in our country, and that it hurts real people. I remember in the last shutdown there being frankly, bread lines where Jose Andres was feeding government workers who didn't have money to buy food. And this comes right after the trauma that government workers, federal workers, have faced as a result of Doge. So, it's the Doge cuts. It's now this shutdown. I almost wonder, why would anybody want to be a federal worker when supposedly the reason to be one was job security?
And that's what Trump and Republicans want. I mean, they don't want people to serve in the federal government. So
exactly.
This is handing them a win.
But I also think you can't make light of the fact that there is a real issue that Democrats are fighting for here,
sure,
which is the ACA subsidies and the millions of Americans that are going to be hurt when those subsidies disappear. I don't get an ACA subsidy, but I am on the ACA exchange. I got an email from my insurance company last month telling me because of government changes.
But here's the problem.
The costs are going to go way up.
Aren't expiring. The ACA subsidies aren't expiring.
I want to stop here for a second just before Joe Borelli, the MAGA guy, gets into his spiel here. Anna Navarro is spot on with what she's saying. The first thing that I want to address is we've got that short clip that Abby Phillip played of Ted Cruz talking about the Democrats crying about this. And I'm not saying anything that you don't already know, but I mean, what a sick scumbag Ted Cruz is. And anyone I can't imagine cheering on anybody losing their job. But MAGA and the Republicans, and not just the politicians, I mean, just regular people. I mean, I know people personally in my life who were giddy over the thought of government workers losing their jobs. These lazy worthless government workers. And what none of these idiots ever seem to think about, even if you don't care about somebody else losing their job, in your town, in the area where you live, in the area where I live, the federal government is the largest employer. So none of these idiots think about the fact that, gee, these are good jobs in my community. These are jobs that pay well. And if those people lose their jobs, then my favorite restaurant's going to go under, or my other, my favorite business of some kind. But none of these idiots make that connection. They're like, gee, people in my community losing their jobs, I mean, that might affect me in terms of, the businesses that I like to go to might go under. None of these idiots ever think about the fact of how connected we are. And if a bunch of people where you live, their jobs get cut, that could affect you. I know lots of business owners that cheer on people losing their jobs, which is just absolutely insane. But as Anna Navarro says here to Abby Phillip, why would anyone want to be a federal worker right now? At one time, this was a job that was in a profession that was pretty non-controversial. But Donald Trump, I think, has had a negative impact on more professions than any politician that I can ever think of in my lifetime. Federal workers, they're lazy pieces of garbage. Teachers, I mean, they've been against teachers for a long time, but teachers, they're indoctrinating your kids and they're radical leftists. Same thing for college professors. Air traffic controllers, another at one time non-controversial profession. Oh, they're unqualified DEI hires. Are there any people that Donald Trump and MAGA actually think are real Americans and do real jobs other than maybe non-woke CEOs or people who donate to Donald Trump's campaigns, his massive donors? But it's crazy. I know so many federal workers who are hardcore MAGA.
Firing until December. And that's part and parcel to the debate we're having, right? The Republicans,
and do you trust Congress? Do you trust this Congress to do anything in time?
It doesn't matter if you trust them. You have to. They have the power to do this. The Republicans have said, let me finish. We gave her some time. The Republicans have voted on 13 clean CRs at times in history in the last few years when Democrats controlled the House, the Senate, and the White House. Republicans did that. I can read you a laundry list of Democratic elected official quotes, including Chuck Schumer, including Hakeem Jeffries, talking about how necessary it is not to insert partisan politics to pass clean CRs. Suddenly, they decided that this one is going to be different, and they own the consequences. A poll out yesterday in the New York Times, 65% of people say the Democrats should not have done this. That's bad polling for the Democratic Party. This is the Chuck Schumer shutdown. He is responsible for this, and no aligning of the stars is going to make the public see it any differently.
I mean, I do think that, first of all, I think the polling and the public sort of impression of this is going to be a big question mark, because one of the other different parts about this shutdown is that previously you didn't have a federal government and the governing party celebrating people losing their jobs, celebrating people not getting their paychecks. I mean, let me just play what President Trump said about this just tonight. Listen.
Well, there could be firings, and that's their fault. And it could also be other things. I mean, we could cut projects that they wanted, favorite projects, and they'd be permanently cut. So you could say, a lot of people are saying Trump wanted this, that I wanted this closing, and I didn't want it. But a lot of people are saying it because I'm allowed to cut things that should have never been approved in the first place. And I will probably do that.
I just think people are watching this and they're like, wait a second, who wants to open the government? Because Trump seems to be really comfortable with the fact that he gets to do, in his view, in his mind, maybe that's not legal, but in his mind, he gets to do what he has always wanted to do.
Well, that's right. And I think that to the earlier point about whether or not this shutdown gives Trump more power, Trump already believes that he has unlimited power. He believes that everything is being challenged in the courts. He's tried to fire federal workers. He's gone beyond the bounds of any other presidency in our nation's history. And I think the interesting thing about this is that not only is he praising a shutdown, but Republicans on the Hill are actually, when you ask them about the ACA subsidies, they said, well, why do we need to do that? We didn't actually this is not why we got elected. We got elected on the border. We didn't get elected to provide health care for people, which I find interesting because it just shows you that they are nowhere on this issue, and they're likely not going to come to the table. And to be honest with you, everyone keeps on saying this is a Chuck Schumer shutdown. Can I just tell you, Democrats don't give a crap about Chuck Schumer's future.
Yeah, but
hold on. I'm not done. I let you talk.
You're right.
The senators in the Senate, they do not give a crap about what Chuck Schumer is going to do, whether he's going to remain leader. Hakeem Jeffries doesn't care about Chuck Schumer. I don't know about Anna does. I mean, a lot of people.
I'm a registered Republican. I certainly don't.
You certainly don't care about. You certainly don't care about Chuck Schumer. And from Florida.
Chuck Schumer cares. He's been holed up with Democratic groups like MoveOn.org in a war room about the shutdown. He's afraid of not anything else but AOC.
But
that's what Chuck Schumer's afraid of. That's why he suddenly has his beer muscles.
Do you realize that primary for the U.S. Senate seat, if Chuck Schumer runs for re-election, is in 4 years?
And he's scared.
Okay, do you think anybody cares?
I'm not the only one saying this.
Do you think anybody's going to remember in 4 years about this?
It's a fair point because it's kind of hard to.
It's hard to remember the things that happened last week.
But let me play what J.D. Vance was asked about Trump's trolling of Democrats, okay? So, like, a basic question in all of this is, if Trump really was all that interested in getting to a deal with Democrats, would he actually be talking to them, or would he be sending out doctored AI videos? But here's how J.D. Vance responded to it.
Is it helpful to post pictures of Leader Jeffries in a sombrero if you're trying to have good faith talks with him?
Oh, I think it's funny. The president's joking, and we're having a good time. You can negotiate in good faith while also poking a little bit of fun at some of the absurdities of the Democrats' positions, and even, poking some fun at the absurdity of the Democrats themselves. Hakeem Jeffries said it was racist, and I know that he said that. And I honestly don't even know what that means. Like, is he a Mexican American that is offended by having a sombrero meme?
I saw a meme today of Epstein and Trump with fake sombreros and mustaches. I wish a reporter would show it to J.D. Vance and ask him if he thinks it's equally funny and not racist and just having a good time.
I mean, part of the reason that was described as racist is because in the video, what is being said is essentially that Democrats want to bring in all of these, Latino Mexicans or whatever, and that they don't speak English anyway, so they don't know who they're going to vote for. I mean, it's pretty clearly a racial attack.
So, Abby, this is not really my ballywick, right? I'm a lawyer, and the only thing that I'm being affected by seriously is when I'm speaking to the U.S. Attorney's Office and the SEC on Monday, and they're going to give me paperwork, and they're like, well, if we're here on Wednesday, we'll get it to you because we may not be here on Wednesday. But, I spoke to one of my closest friends who lives in Switzerland. He's of Greek origin. I spoke to one of my closest friends who lives in Florence, Italy. And they're like, brother, what's going on in your country? I mean, you guys can't even figure out how to pay your bills. It's the United States of America. You're laying people off. That's what happens in Italy when they had 45 different governments in 45 years. I mean, and they're not students of our government. They're not necessarily blaming Trump or Schumer or any. They're just like, your country is going to hell in a handbasket. It's becoming like our countries that we can't balance budgets and get people paid. Yeah. And it's sad. And it's sad because the people who are not getting paid this week, who need that money, they don't care if it's this one's fault, that one's fault. They don't care if it's Democrat, Republican. They can't pay the rent. Today's October 1st. I mean, they can't pay the rent.
Most of the federal employees who aren't getting paid now will get their money back eventually. So, I mean, for taxpayers, these people aren't doing their jobs right now.
You tell it to the landlord.
Actually, I don't know if we know that they're going to get their money back. I'm not sure this Congress.
There's a law that was passed.
Well, I mean, if they're fired, they won't get.
Well, if they're fired, they won't get.
And it sounds like they're going to try to fire them.
It's certainly the possibility that will happen to some people.
And if projects are canceled, there's contractors that are going to lose.
There are certainly going to be consequences.
A lot of good reasons for Democrats to have supported the CR, sounds like.
Well, perhaps. I think that
So I love that the MAGA guy tries to put the blame on Democrats. So you have Republicans control the presidency and Republicans control the House and the Senate. But in MAGA guy's mind, it's the Democrats' fault that we have the government shut down. And the criminal defense attorney talking about Italy. And it's sad that government workers are not going to get paid. And I know people personally who are working today without being paid. They're still having to go to work, but they don't They don't know if they're going to get paid or not. And I wouldn't count on, with this government, getting back pay. But what also is sad, and the guy talking about his friends in Italy, they don't have to worry about going to a doctor because they have a universal healthcare system that the United States does not have. And we're talking about the ACA here and these subsidies that Anna Navarro and the others are talking about with the ACA. For people who don't live in the United States, you might not know how our system here works. For people who don't get insurance through their employer, I'm somebody like this, I'm self-employed, so I have to go through the ACA, which is the healthcare marketplace, to get my insurance. And for people below a certain income, there are subsidies that cover some of the costs. So with some of the plans, it could be $1,000, $2,000 a month, but people below a certain income have a certain amount of that subsidized, so they don't pay the whole amount. With the government shutdown and what MAGA, what Donald Trump, what the Republicans are wanting to have happen is those subsidies go away, so then those people would have to pay the entire amount, which I'm sure is shocking to people who live outside of the United States. But this is what MAGA wants. They don't care. And in fact, they have disdain for the idea that people would get help with paying their insurance premiums. But this is what we have in Donald Trump's America. Instead of working towards some kind of a single payer plan, Medicare for all, that most of the rest of the world has, or some similar plan, we're getting further and further away from that in the United States. And as Anna Navarro says, she's somebody who can afford it, but she gets her insurance through the marketplace and costs are going to go up for her, just like for millions of other people. But that's where we're at in Donald Trump's America. And with this shutdown, Republicans are getting what they've always dreamed of. They're going to cut more jobs, just as they illegally did with Doge. More people are going to be paying more for insurance, or maybe lose their insurance entirely. But of course, as some on the panel have pointed out here, Republicans think that's great. Who cares if people who aren't rich can't pay for their insurance? But let me know what you think about all of this. Do you agree with Anna Navarro about federal workers and the ACA? Do you agree with Joe Borelli, the MAGA dude here, that this is all just the Democrats' fault? Let me know what you think about this panel that included Anna Navarro and others on Abby Phillip's show. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I will see you in the next video.